Hey everybody, I'm Lisa Stone with Parenting Aces, joined by Coach Todd Widom of Todd Widom Tennis. Todd, looks like you've got a crib and a yoga mat. I'm not sure what else behind you today.
Yeah, the yoga mats for my wife, not me. My yoga days are over.
All
And
right.
I did yoga when I was playing, but not anymore. And the crib, well, we should get rid of that too.
So, how was your morning? Did you beat up on the kids?
Yeah, no, it's a little quieter, so I didn't work too much this morning. I mean, our summer,
Okay.
so this week I'm taking it easy a little bit. We were oversold for the vast majority of the summer. So we had kids that were extending their stay longer than I expected. And so we were actually oversold and working, some more hours with these players. And so it was exciting, especially during these times.
That's awesome. So, for people that aren't familiar with you and your tennis program, can you just tell us a little bit about where you're located and what you do?
Sure. So we're located in the western part of Fort Lauderdale, in Coral Springs. It's about 20 minutes south of Boca Raton. What we do
And
is,
that's Florida for our international viewers.
sorry, yes, Florida, as yes, sorry. But so what we do is a little bit different. You have tennis academies all throughout the country, all throughout Florida, all throughout South Florida, all throughout the world. What we do is different, like I said. So what I run is what I consider a small private school for very serious tennis players, and so all the kids go through an assessment, whether they're coming for a week, a month, full time. They go through this assessment, so we have a full understanding of what we need to work on to maximize the students' time with us. And so for us, we're training kids that are very serious, and the vast majority of the kids that we train, they're looking to go to the most elite universities in the country, and we have some pro prospects as well. So really, we run it like a private school would for academics. We're just doing it in tennis, and so the kids are guaranteed to have really good coaching all day long for their child, and we're managing their careers, the whole way through, whether it's their tennis training, the physical aspect, the mental aspect, the nutritional aspect, then the tournament coaching, tournament scheduling. I do the college placement, so it's really a full management of these children's tennis careers, and the parents are relocating into my system, into the area for this type of management and training.
And so, you work out of a local club, a local park. What's your facility?
Sure. So I have two facilities I use. They're both public facilities in Coral Springs. In fact, for the viewers that follow professional ATP tennis on the men's side, this was where the Delray Beach ATP originated before it went to Delray Beach. So
Nice.
I was a youngster growing up in Coral Springs in elementary school, and there's an elementary school right next to the tennis facility where I train the players. So, I grew up about 2 miles down the road. My mom helps me with some of the housing for some of the kids that need boarding. I had kids living in my house for the last 8 weeks. So now it's time to relax a little bit.
And it's you and one of the gentlemen that coached you as a player coming up, Pierre.
That's right. So for the viewers that follow me on social media, they'll know that Pierre Arnold trained me my whole career. I was trained by two very disciplinarian Argentine coaches that were producing a lot of the champions in South Florida in the 80s. I met them in 89, but in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, these two gentlemen, Pierre Arnold and George Paris, were developing a lot of the amateur champions, professional champions. I mean, I was around very elite players from when I was 6 years old. So I had these two gentlemen train me from when I was 6 years old to when I retired from the ATP Tour, 26 years old. Unfortunately, George passed away when I was 15, and George and Pierre were best friends and business partners. So that was very tough. But as we say, I used to work for Pierre, and now Pierre works for me. So life
Love
is
it.
good. And then I have another gentleman that's working for me as well. This gentleman, Daniel Yu, who was a super national champion here in the United States. He's a Korean American. young man, and he trained with Pierre from when he was about 14 or 15 years old, all the way through his professional career. So he started working for me in January, and he's tremendous, from the tennis to the physical training. I mean, you name it, he's amazing. He was training Korea's top ATP player in Korea before he came to work for me. And that gentleman, his last name is Kwon, and he's about 60 or 70 in the world. So to have Daniel, working under me in my system, it's been amazing. And he wanted to come back to the United States because his parents live here locally. So it's been tremendous. And so I have it's us three main guys with the kids all day long. And we're doing everything with the kids, customizing the workouts, as well as a private hitting partner that I hire to be, joining us in our workouts every single day. So I really feel like if you're a very serious player, this is a great arena for those types of kids.
Sure. What age range are the kids that you're working with now?
Sure. So we had a couple of youngsters. We do have a full-time 12-year-old boy with us throughout the whole year, and then we had some kids that came in and out that were a little bit younger. We even had, I think, an 8, 9-year-old, and then we had a couple of 11-year-olds and some 12-year-olds, but usually it ranges from about 12 to 18 years old.
Boys and girls.
Boys and girls, absolutely.
Right. Okay. And so before we get into the thrust of today's conversation, I just want to throw out there for those of you watching, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make, please type them in the comments on Facebook, and we will see them. I will see them, and I will present them to Todd, and hopefully we'll be able to address any questions you have during our conversation. But for those who are tuning in, because we kind of promoted this as an update on what's going on in Florida in terms of junior training and junior competition. Todd, talk to us a little bit about what's happening down there. We know Florida's been kind of an epicenter of COVID-19. Y'all have had a rough go of things. Tennis never really shut down 100% there, even though it was supposed to. There were still people out training because so many people own private courts there that they were able to do that, including you, and B, because Florida is the home of a lot of professional tennis players, even those who aren't American born or even American citizens, but they reside in Florida to train because of obviously the weather there. So in terms of the junior happenings, and we know USTA has been leaving things up to the sections, UTR's kind of stepped in and offered some things. The ITF juniors are shut down for the year, though we're still waiting to hear what's happening with Eddie Hearn and Orange Bowl, I think. But what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are your kids doing?
Well, I've had kids that have been playing quite a few tournaments, believe it or not. During the really tough time back in about early March when our facility shut down, my full-timers went back home. So this is a very challenging time because I'm trying to support Pierre and Daniel and my private hitting partner as well as myself. So that was challenging. So we did have some private courts that we were able to use, but most of our students went home. They went back to Kansas, Ohio, these types of places all throughout the country. So when we started back up, the families came right back, and they were ready to go. So that was exciting for us. Both our facilities opened up, and really our visitors started to come back to train with us as well. I have a whole list of kids that come in and out of my system throughout the year for different reasons. Maybe they can't relocate here full time. Maybe they are preparing for certain tournaments. Maybe they, have long weekends. Maybe kids and parents want assessments from myself or from Pierre to give them, a different idea of what maybe needs to be done for their child's tennis to keep improving. So, in South Florida, I got plenty of phone calls of people that were asking me, "Hey, is it okay? The virus, the this, the that, are there tournaments being played?" And what I can say is that our facility never got shut down one time from when it opened, and no members and none of the kids that we had tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. So for us, we were just really staying in our little bubble. As I kept telling all the parents, I'm going to the supermarket maybe once or twice a week with my mask on, and I'm playing tennis and I play some golf, and that's really it. And so
Mhm.
for us, we just kept pumping away and training the kids, and parents were coming in into our system with their children. A good friend of mine owns 2 hotels locally, so I was keeping in contact with him. The families were staying in the hotel, or they were renting Airbnbs, or if a child wanted a board with either myself or my mom, they had to come with their parents first and stay for at least a week to 2 weeks, and then I would let them into my house or into my mother's house. And so it was busy. It was really busy. It was really exciting for me because I really wasn't sure how busy we would be. Um, but that's great, but we don't take on masses of kids. So to fill my system up doesn't take a tremendous amount of kids. Now the academies, I think, was a different story from what I was hearing. From
Yeah.
boarding to the masses of kids to the summer camps, these things, I think the academies that surround me, more so in the Boca Raton and Delray Beach area, I think they got hurt big time. And so it's been tough, I think, for a lot of academies in the area.
Sure. What's the maximum number of kids that you had this summer in a given week?
Well, I try to never take on more than 15 students.
Okay.
Usually throughout the school year, we have about 9 or 10 full timers. When it becomes holiday times, maybe summer, spring, Christmas, that's when we start to get to that 15 number. I
Hmm.
had around 17 for a bunch of weeks because some of the kids were extending their stay. So that's
Mm.
exciting, which means, you know what, we're just going to work more hours. That's but
Yeah.
they were extending their stay, and I really enjoyed having these kids in my system. So it wasn't like I was going to throw them out and say, go home, get out of here.
Right.
So it was busy, but we made it work. I think it was great. The kids that were playing in tournaments had some tremendous results. I know you see my stuff on social media, so I put that. And so it was exciting, but now it's nice for me to take a little rest.
Yeah. So is school going back in person in Florida?
It is, yeah. It's
Okay.
going back. You could do a hybrid program. Some kids are going virtual, and some kids are going back into the class. So it really just depends on the school. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, oof, yeah.
No, I know it's going to be very interesting. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I'm just taking it day by day. I was thrilled. We had a phenomenal summer. We got to assess some new students. They want to come back. They're figuring out their schooling. There's a lot up in the air. I mean, I feel like people may contact me because the indoor environments, could be tough for
Yeah.
the COVID-19 virus. So the fall could. I'm not really sure what's going to happen in the future. I cannot predict it.
Yeah, I know. None of us can right now. Things are so up in the air. So your kids that were there all summer, you said there were a lot of tournaments going on. What types of tournaments were they playing? Were they typical USTA junior events or other types of events?
No, they weren't USTA tournaments. They were UTR men's and women's opens. So
Okay.
we had some kids that are getting ready, and they're going through the college process, right? So they wanted to play and compete as much as they could in the local UTR tournaments. We tried to minimize their travel, obviously, but there's so many tournaments here usually that they don't usually have to travel much. So
Right.
in our little bubble of playing the men's and women's opens. We had 12-year-olds playing in men's and women's opens. We had our, older students, 17, 18-year-olds playing in them. Obviously the 12-year-olds, it's tough when you're playing adults and everything, but it's a good experience. And their sibling was playing in it as well. So we're like, yeah, go have some fun, no big deal. And so mostly it's been those UTR open events.
And what do you see on the schedule as schools starting back up? And again, USTA is leaving it up to each section to determine the best protocol moving forward. What's happening in Florida?
Well, I had a student of mine play a local 16s tournament this past weekend. So that was good to know that the USTA tournaments are back. But I guess they're going to start back up. There's a lot of tournaments that are played out of the center where I train my students, but that gentleman has not started the events yet.
Mm-hmm.
But there's plenty within a 30-mile radius or even 20-mile radius around me. There's been quite a few events for kids to play.
Which is great because it means that you don't have to stay in a hotel. You get to sleep in your own bed. You don't have to worry about eating out. You can bring your food for the day. And, from a COVID perspective, it allows you the most protection if you can go play tennis and then come back home at night.
Well, yeah, that's what I was really monitoring, and getting the report from Daniel, who was going to the events, to how strict they were with with staying safe at the events, because I was going to pull those kids out of the tournament if it wasn't 100% safe. We're not going to game. And if COVID comes in, obviously we know we're going to get shut down. So it was stressful, and I was making sure that things were done properly, and they were. I was getting very good reports and everything. So we went for it, and the kids were playing, and we've been great. Knock on wood, all has been good.
Good. Yeah, I'm hearing really positive things too on the events that are back on the schedule, where either they're using things like Match Tennis app to have contactless check-in and court assignments and score reporting. Yep. They're limiting to the player and one other person, so either a coach or a parent, but they don't have a lot of people hanging out. Players are checking in 10 minutes before their match and going straight to their match court and things like that. So there's no gathering like you would normally see at a junior tournament, which, it's sad because our tennis kids are already playing this individual sport where it's a lot of pressure on themselves and a lot of isolation, and tournaments were always kind of the place where you got to connect with your buddies and hang out and maybe have a meal together or hang out at night at the hotel, whatever. So that's gone temporarily, but the kids are at least getting to play, which is good. And, we don't know what's going to happen with college tennis. And that's another area that I'd love to hear from you what you're hearing, because I know you're connected with not only recruiting companies, but also college coaches. And I just did, a workshop with LRT Sports on recruiting and what's going on and what these kids need to be doing. But it's always nice to hear the coach's side and the recruiter side of what's happening.
Yeah. So what I really feel is that if kids want to play college tennis, I think it's just going to become a lot more elite. And I said this to you yesterday. I think I texted you, Lisa. I think it was about 50 programs, I believe, from junior college all the way to Division I that have gone under so far, and now they're speaking about football not having a season.
Okay? Right.
Football does not have a season. That is going to really hurt the non-revenue sports, which obviously is tennis. So who knows what's going to happen. But what I can tell you is that I believe that tennis in general, whether it's, junior tennis or going on to hopefully play college tennis, professional tennis, it's all going to become a lot more elite in the whole arena. You're looking at the U.S. Open and they're not even having a qualifying.
Right.
This is, it's unprecedented what's going on. I guess tennis is trying its best, but I think it's gonna be tough. I think it's gonna for kids and parents that are listening to us right now. What I always say is get the absolute best training for your child, because I think it's only going to become more and more difficult for kids to be playing college tennis, right?
Just mainly because there are going to be fewer programs, so fewer spots.
Yeah, if you think of 50 programs, maybe you're just talking about the men's side. 50 programs times, let's average 10 kids per roster.
Yeah.
That's 500 kids that are now out of college tennis. Now, if it's men's and women's programs, 50 universities, now you're talking 1,000 kids.
Right.
So it's just going to get squeezed more and more and more, in my opinion.
Yeah. And what we're hearing and what we talked about in the LRT sports workshop last week before time is just a big mush right now for me. But whenever that workshop was, one of the things we talked about was the importance of the kids really marketing themselves and making sure they stand out in the college coaches' eyes and getting in front of those coaches via video, via email, via text messages, whatever it is. And making sure that coaches are aware when you are playing matches at a facility that's live streaming so the coaches can tune in and watch, because the coaches don't have the budgets right now to be traveling around to junior events. So they're going to rely more on PlaySite and other live streaming features that some of these facilities are implementing right now. One thing that's really sad is Kalamazoo was supposed to be going on as we speak, right? Kalamazoo and San Diego, both of which were canceled. San Diego was still going to happen for the longest time. Kalamazoo got moved to Lake Nona and then canceled. And those are, our country's two largest recruiting opportunities for junior players, right? I mean, those two events get the most college coaches of any junior events. Maybe Orange Bowl and Eddie Herr, I don't know, Easter Bowl's up there, but Kalamazoo and San Diego were definitely, for the U.S. players, kind of the mecca for getting spotted by a coach. And that just got wiped off the calendar this year. So we got to be creative. As a junior coach who helps these kids get recruited, what are some of the things you're doing, Todd, to help get these kids noticed?
Well, my students, they may start with an email and they put me in the email. I have spent many hours on the phone with college coaches this summer for a couple of my students that it's their time to get placed for college.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to a bunch of the coaches, videoing, because the coaches maybe couldn't fly to watch the students train
Right.
in my system or tournaments. And so it's videos, it's emails, it's hours on the phone speaking about my student, their parents, right? Because that's really important too. For the parents that are listening to this, the college coaches want to know how the parenting is for someone that they're recruiting, right? Because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say, right? So there's many different things, and then the students, they have usually a list of maybe 10 schools that they're interested in. Some are maybe a far reach, some are very realistic, some are a little bit on the lower end of really what they're looking for.
Safety schools.
Yeah, safety schools.
Yeah.
So and we start attacking it. Hours, emails, phone calls, videos, clips of how they're training and all these things. So that's what we've done.
Yeah. I mean, and it's great. And, I am a huge proponent of having the student athlete run the process themselves, but we're in unprecedented times right now. And these kids need all the help they can get getting noticed by the college coaches. So you as a junior coach, these kids really well, especially your full-timers. Obviously the kids that, come for a week during the summer, you might not have as much knowledge about them, but certainly your full-timers and the kids that come regularly throughout the year. And so you're a great resource for the college coach. If you have a kid that you're working with who also has a coach back home, so maybe this kid just comes down for a couple weeks at a time, like you were saying, over school breaks or whatever, how much are you interacting with their coach at home to coordinate this whole recruiting process for them?
Well, what's exciting for us is that we've had coaches send some of their players to us saying that we really love your arena. So that, to me, that's like the ultimate compliment, to have a coach actually send one of their prize students to us. So hopefully that means we're doing a good job. So that's great. In terms of the college placement, if they're not a full-time student, in my arena, I'll help out, but I don't want to overstep my boundaries, because that's not really my student that's with us all year long. right? I don't want to, step on anyone's toes or anything. But if they really want me to help them, then I will. I mean, obviously, I'll help, the kids, to the fullest of my ability. So, it just really depends. But most of the kids that I train full time, obviously, I help them with the college placement and do the college placement with them. But usually, just our visitors, I'm usually not helping in that arena because they're only here for a specific time. But if they become a full time student, then obviously that's part of what we do. I don't feel it would be right if I'm speaking about a student that actually isn't full time
Gotcha.
in my arena. I don't think that that's the right thing to do. I wouldn't know that student as well unless they spent all these hours with
Right.
Aaron Daniel.
Right. So a minute ago, we were talking about the fact that all these college programs are getting cut and what that looks like for tennis overall. You and I, as you mentioned earlier, were exchanging texts yesterday. And one of the things that we were talking about was comparing tennis to golf. And because you play golf and your son plays golf, and so you're kind of in both places. You played with Jay Berger. He was your college coach. It's his daughter that?
His son.
Oh, his son.
About top 20 or top 30 in the world.
Right, in golf.
Yes.
So, and Jay is the former head of men's tennis at USTA. He was
coach.
Davis Cup coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yep. Very involved in tennis, and was a top player himself, both, as a junior, college, and professionally. Became an amazing college coach as well. And so, but his kid is in golf and doing very well in golf. And one of the things, I've written articles about this, about looking to golf as a model for what tennis needs to be doing, not just in player development, but also in parent education and in growth opportunities for the participants in the sport. And golf has many, many different pathways that players can go down. If they're not of the level that they're going to play high-level college golf or move on to the PGA Tour, there are different places that they can fit into the sport and still be highly, highly successful. Tennis hasn't figured that out yet. What are some of the things that you're seeing right now where you feel like we have such an opportunity in tennis to learn from golf and maybe even from basketball and baseball and soccer and hockey and all these other sports, where we could do a better job to ensure that those families that choose tennis have a pathway that leads to success?
Ooh, we could talk about this for a long time.
Well, let's talk about it. We've got some time. We've got a half hour. Let's do it.
So for my viewers, I grew up playing golf and tennis. My dad was a really high-level amateur player. Maybe, for the golfers out there that are listening, and obviously they know tennis, is that my dad was about a scratch player, which is a very high-level amateur, and my mom was into tennis. So I was introduced to both sports at the same time at 6 years old. So I play quite a bit of golf now when I can in my spare time. And my son is 6 years old, and he's been competing in tournaments, and I've been caddying for him for over a year now. Right. So that's, for me, it's just, such a joy to be spending that time with him and watching him compete. And we're just having a great time out there. And he loves it.
Let me interrupt you 1 second, because what I think is so interesting about youth golf is the parents are the caddies. So the parents are intimately involved in their kids' competition from the get-go. They are on the course with them. They are having to learn the sport. They're having to learn how to interact with their child. They're having to learn what the boundaries are with their child while they're out there. And there are very, very detailed rules and regulations around what the parent can and cannot do while caddying, right?
That is true. So for me, being a tennis coach and going through tennis, through the whole arena, during my, junior and college and pro days, I want to make it as simple as I can for my son, right? I don't want to coach him that much. I made it very clear that I play some pretty good amateur golf, but I don't want to really be that involved in any type of coaching, right? I let his coach do the work and everything. Let my son enjoy it, and if he has questions, I'll try to answer them if I can.
Mhm.
But I just want to enjoy my time with him. And when we're out there, I'm noticing what the parents are doing, with
Sure.
5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and everything. And sometimes I'm thinking, ooh, that's not good. Or, hey, this parent is solid. They're stable. They're doing a good job. So, I'm in that arena every day, in the tennis arena, with communicating with the parents to make sure that their children are doing well, and things are going well. But what I can tell you is that, there are a lot of details, and parents are walking with their kids, and you have to really know how to handle it, and
Mhm.
that's that's a tricky situation. I've had some tricky situations out there on the golf course with my son, thinking, how should I handle this right now? He's maybe, not doing this well or that well or whatever, or should I give him a tip or two? But I really don't want to like be involved. I'd like for him to learn on his own, right? And learn from his coach, that he works with. So it gets interesting, but overall, we're just enjoying the time out there, walking the 9 holes, and enjoying some of the competition.
But I think one of the things I found most interesting when starting to learn about junior golf was how much parent education there is when your child starts into the golf world. And again, there are very strict rules and regulations about parent behavior on the course, parent interaction with their child during competition, and things like that. And we don't have so much of that in tennis. And I've done a couple conversations recently. My live stream each week with Dewey Evans on Wednesday mornings. Last week, we started talking about why parent education is such a crucial piece of the junior development process. And then I did a chat on the Locker Room app about, kind of expanding on that and talking about why parents need to invest in their own education. We've seen that the Junior Golf Association has really taken control of parent education. USTA really has not jumped full force into that arena. It's left the parent education up to people like me with Parenting Aces, people like Frank Giampaolo, who's written lots of books and does lots of workshops around parent education. People like Dewey Evans, who, is through his performance architect work, is helping parents. So why do you think golf deemed it necessary to really define parent education and hone it and offer it, and tennis has kind of stayed away from that?
Okay. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
To me, when you're in a club in golf, there's just such a certain amount of respect and class, in my opinion. Okay. When from everything that you do with on a golf course, whether it's fixing a ball mark, putting sand in your divots, everything, you're taking care and you're respecting what's around you, right? To me, it's very classy. From what I'm seeing, is that the parents are doing, from what I've seen, are doing a really nice job, and it's really based on respect and respecting the game. And so these are some of the things that are really, to me, just really eye-opening when I go to golf events with my son, because I played some golf events when I was about 12 or 13, one summer, but I didn't really compete in golf.
Mm.
I only competed in tennis. And so, the things that I'm seeing in tennis, they're not happening in this golf arena from what I've witnessed. Whether, the respect level, the class, there's a lot of, speaking about of cheating and, and all these things. And I don't know. It's not, to me, it's not headed in the right direction. And there needs to be a lot of communication with the parents.
And I mean, in golf, things like cheating just aren't tolerated. I mean, it's not, there's no gray area. You just don't do it. If you do it, you're out. That's it. It's done.
Yeah, I mean, in golf, I think one of the worst things that you can be labeled is someone that's cheating, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's you're not a truthful competitor. So I can tell you in golf that people that are suspected of cheating, you have eyes on you at all times, right? And so I grew up competing with my father and his buddies, and you knew who would kind of bend the rules a little bit, and so I compete with guys in golf now that played pro golf back in the day, and played college golf, but these things, right? And so when you suspect that could happen, you're watching them like a hawk at all times, right? And so just like anything in life, I mean, once you break that trust, then it's really hard to regain it.
Yeah. Do you think that the whole cheating thing is one of the things that's really hurting our sport? I mean, we hear that a lot from parents that, my kid played a tournament and there was all this cheating going on and they decided they didn't want to be part of that. So that was it. One tournament, we're done. We're out of tennis. We're going to move on to something else. But I don't know how widespread that is.
Well, I can tell you that, I've gone to obviously many junior tournaments in the past 10 years. And obviously I came through amateur tennis, in the United States. And some of the things that I've seen are just unacceptable. And many times when I see it happening, I think to myself, if my son ever did this, I would be so upset that they better not do it again or I'm yanking them. Mm-hmm. Right? This would be a really bad reflection of the parents. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes I see kids that are not doing the right things and they're cheating, but they have a lot of pressure from a parent, right? And so they're doing anything that they can to get a win. But what they must realize is that there comes a certain point where you're either good enough or you're not. And so, I've always thought that, if you're going to lose, then you need to go back and you need to train harder. You need to get better. And if you get better, then it will result in more wins. If you're taking the shortcut, it's going to catch up with you. And so that's the way I was brought up and everything. But it's hard because, I've seen a bunch of tournaments lately. No good, right? Unfortunately, no good. Pretty disgusting if you want my honest opinion about it. And, it's part of the game. The UTR, the USTA, to me, if they want to make tennis, better, and they want to make the tournaments more of a success and want kids to come back, then they better come up with some things that they're gonna cut that out. To me, it's disgusting. And
and I think we've had this conversation before, but more referees, more umpires, that's not the answer necessarily, because really it boils down to, as you were saying about golf, having respect for the game, having respect for your opponent, and doing the right thing because you respect the game and your opponent, right? And so sometimes cheating isn't cheating. Sometimes cheating is a kid needs glasses or a kid needs better training about how to call lines. Okay, so it's not always malevolent, but when it is, to me, that's a problem with either the pressure that the kid's getting from home, as you mentioned, the coaching, because we've all heard those coaches who say, if it's on the line, call it out. There are coaches out there. I'm telling you.
I know.
There are coaches out there. And we've also seen where there are officials who turn the other way if it's a certain kid from a certain family or connected to the tournament in some positive way, and they don't want to penalize that family or whatever. So I don't think it's more officials. I don't think that's the answer. I really think it has to start with giving the sport and giving competition and giving the opponent the respect that they're due. And for some reason, we've lost that.
Well, I think it's upbringing, right? I think
That's part of it, and it's a big part of it for sure.
If I saw my son cheating or not doing things properly in an event, it's not going to go over well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, because it is a reflection of the parenting as well and the coaching, right? So,
for sure.
And that's why I say upbringing, right? And also know that when you take when you take shortcuts, I never met any successful tennis player that took shortcuts. In fact, they went over and above what the coaches were asking them to do and what they were training them to do. That's why they became really good.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't take shortcuts. I don't know kids that take shortcuts that do really well. So, to me, that's a discipline. It's an upbringing. It's a society, right? And so when you do things well and you're trained really well, you really have that inner confidence and belief that you deserve to do some really good things, right? And
but how has golf managed to get that point across and tennis is not? You've got a foot in both worlds.
Yeah, that I'm not sure. I go to the golf tournaments and I see to me, the structure is so good, right? I mean, from their tee times to, there's marshals driving around in their golf carts, making sure that, that the kids, if they need a penalty shot or they don't understand a ruling, it's all taken care of. It's very structured. It's really good, right? And you go and you sign your name on your scorecard. You make sure all the numbers are correct. You're checking this. Like, there's a process to everything that's going on, and it's followed by the kids, and obviously the parents are overseeing that in case there could be a mistake, but it is followed to the nth degree. And they're doing a great job. And what I can tell you also is that there's so many nice things for these kids to try to grow the game of golf, right? To maybe discounted things at golf courses. There's free range balls so the kids can practice. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a tennis tournament and they're like, well, you got to give me $10 for the court. And the kid already paid $100 for the entry fee. I mean, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, how much more are you going to suck from the parents, right? How much more money, right? Do we need, right? And I haven't seen that in my son's golf career. I mean, golf tournaments, doing it about a year to a year and a half. I'm very impressed with the way that they're doing things, and there's discounted things. Their kids are getting together, and there's nice groupings. Obviously not during this virus time, but nice groupings, doing really well together. They're applauding each other when they hit great shots. I'm telling the other child that's playing with my son, great shot. That's great. It's a positive environment. I don't know. It's just to me, it's just two different worlds.
When you went to your first junior golf event with your son, before you went, were you given any information on expected behavior, rules, regulations, all that? Or did you just pick it up from the other parents on the course?
You were told the rules from an official before the children teed off on their first hole. And then, I've played a lot of golf, so, I'm teaching my son how to fix his ball marks, how to, stay in his rituals, how to, mark his ball properly. If you hit a ball in a hazard, how to take a penalty shot and drop it properly. And if you don't know how to do these things, there are people to help you, because they want these kids to play golf for their whole entire life, right? And they are doing it in such a nice and structured way, and the environment is very healthy. It's very, very good. And every time that I've caddied for my son, it's been just a great time. It's been very, very healthy. Whether he's played well, maybe he hasn't played well, that's life. But it's been a very good experience for both of us.
I'm just trying to think, besides not charging for practice courts when you show up for a tournament, or not charging for balls when you need a warm-up court or whatever, What are some of the other things that tennis could take from junior golf to make the junior tennis competition experience more positive?
Well, I think that there needs to be definitely some, stricter rules and regulations, of what, what is expected of kids and parents before an event starts. I mean, that's what they're doing in golf,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that's really, what's going on. So, I think we could do a much better job of that, of, and if kids or parents are, out of line and not doing, the things that should be done, then they're going to pay the price.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to me, that's the way that you do it. And it needs to be healthy competition, right? And there's pressure, right? There's pressure, and the parents and the pressure, the numbers, the UTR numbers, the tennis recruiting, the rankings. Oh my God, this coach said they need a 10 UTR, and I'm a 9.2, and this and that, and my goodness, you know what it comes down to? Train harder and get better, and then the results take care of themselves, right? When I start hearing these numbers, I mean, my mind is about to explode. I never ever tell you, never thought of these things ever when I was training or competing. Never. I didn't think of numbers. How can I get better? And when I get better, the results are going to come.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it works. And I can tell the parents that are listening to this, I've been around the most amazing tennis players from when I was 6 years old, and I've still been around them in my coaching career and everything. That's what they're thinking about. How am I going to get better? Right? How am I going to progress? That's really what's going on. And when you get better and better each and every day, and there's productive workouts physically, mentally, with your game, all those numbers are going to work themselves out because your child, it's going to result in more match wins. You can't force it. You can dodge the competition all you want, but you can't fool the college coaches, they know what they're recruiting because that's their job. Right. And so there's so much analyzing and this and that and all these things, and really it doesn't do any good.
Well, and it's like you said, and we've talked about this before, Todd, numerous times, that every time the kid steps on the court, it should be with the goal of getting better, whether that's 1% better, whether it's 10% better, whatever it is. And especially in a tournament situation, a loss is an opportunity to go back and get better, right? It's not the end of the road. It's one match. And I mean, we hear Rafael Nadal say this all the time. He has a bad loss in a tournament and the press goes after him and, oh my God, how did you lose? You must feel awful. And he's like, it's one tennis match. I've got another one tomorrow or I've got another one next week. In the scheme of things, it just doesn't matter. So the goal isn't to win every tennis match. The goal is to get better and learn every time you step foot on the court.
Well, I think a lot of it is communication, and a lot of it is trust, right? If like I 100% trust the coach that's guiding my son, and I try to stay out of it, right? I try not to give any technical advice. I may give one little tip and then I step away. I can tell you that my son was on the range the other day and I was sitting 50 yards away from him because I want him, and he wasn't hitting the ball well. He took some time off and he was in camp and whatever, and he wasn't hitting the ball well. And my wife, she's like, Todd, aren't you going to go help him? And I said, I don't, because I want him to try to figure it out on his own. And so, he continued to struggle and everything, but he kept trying. And so I walked out there. I gave him one tip. He started to hit the ball better. I walked back to the golf cart. Goodbye. Right. Yeah. And so, they have to try to learn on their own. And I 100% trust his coach, who's doing a great job. I see improvements all the time. And I think that comes to tennis as well, is that if you really trust, your child and the environment that they're in, become a better player, a better person, get physically stronger, physically faster, get mentally stronger, all these things, then you're doing great. If you don't trust, then it's going to be very difficult.
Let me ask you this. In junior golf, what is the ranking system? How does it work, and how often is it updated?
That I don't know. That I'm not sure, because my son is too young for that still.
Okay,
Right?
so at 6 years old, there's no way for him to look at a number and say, I am better than these people and not quite as good as these people. There's no way for that to happen.
Well, he is. He's in a group of 6 and unders, and they know the scores. They know what's going on. They know the kids placing, the highest in events and everything like that.
But it's not, there's no official, like our kids in tennis can go on the USTA's website every week and see an updated ranking. They can go on UTR every week and see an updated rating. ITF, when ITF tournaments are happening, same thing. There's nothing comparable to that, like a weekly ongoing ranking where your son is right now, because even the youngest tennis players, if they play a tournament, they've got a ranking.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that. They have like a little series. I think they're giving some points based on their place of finish in each event. But keep in mind also that some of the events are during the week, so my son hasn't been able to compete in those. I can caddy on the weekends.
Yeah.
So, but the kids that are analyzing, the rankings and everything, is good. Is that doing any good? Is that what it's about? Is it about the ranking?
Well, that's why I'm asking the question, because I feel like, and I don't know how it was when you were coming up in the late 80s, but when I was coming up in the late 60s and 70s, we got rankings once a year.
Right.
So
it was so simple when I was coming through. Eat players that were ranked higher than you or better than you, your ranking went up. If you lost to players that were, not ranked as high as you went down. It came out maybe a couple times a year, the rankings, really to qualify for nationals. I'm talking about sectionals. Mm-hmm. Then try to qualify for nationals. Like I played under Florida, so that section, got a certain amount of players into super nationals. But that was it. I wasn't looking at rankings. I was going to train to try to get better and have a better tournament next time.
Do you think there's a way to put Pandora back in her box and get away from this focus on rankings and ratings? Is there any hope of doing that?
I don't know. I think it's hard, but what I can tell you is that to go out and play a really good match in tennis, what it really takes is that, a young boy or a young girl, if they can follow a game plan for an extended period of time, everything else and anything else doesn't matter at all. To tell the truth, right? It does not matter, right? Because in football, they have a game plan. In basketball, the coach is drawing up the game plan. In golf, they just played the PGA Championship this weekend. Those players have a game plan how to play each and every hole. In tennis, when I speak to the kids that I train, what I'm seeing is how long can they execute a game plan for, and then I'm also, analyzing what we need to work on when this tournament is over. Right? And when they're good enough at those things, they win more.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Numbers and everything else to me means nothing. Does not mean a thing.
So we need to figure out a way, I think, to educate the junior coaches, educate the parents, to put the numbers aside and not focus so heavily on them, even though we talk about them all the time. And I mean, listen, I get it. Tournaments use rankings and ratings to do their acceptance lists. They use them to do seedings. So I understand why ratings and rankings have become so important. But I wish there were a way to hide them on a week-by-week basis and keep us from getting so caught up in what's happening week to week, because week to week isn't the end all be all. It's
the progression.
The marathon, right? It's the journey. And I mean, we've heard you say, we've heard many coaches say, what's happening in the 10s, the 12s, even the 14s really isn't that important. We're developing these kids to play their best tennis when they reach the 18s, when it becomes really important for college recruiting or making that decision to turn pro. But prior to that, it's all about development. It's all about getting better each day, making that progression.
Yeah, I think, as a parent, you have to have patience, right? There's patience in developing certain crucial skills for your child to do really good things. I can tell you, and I think I've told you this or I've written about it, is that I started competing in tennis tournaments when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I did not hit my stride till I was 16. So can you imagine the parents that are listening to this? And I kept losing to the same players, and I was suffering, and they kept beating me. And until I was about 16 years old, then I could beat them. And I can tell you what, some of them I never beat, right, in my whole life. So imagine 20 years of competing with some of the same tennis players. I couldn't figure out a way to beat them. I changed my game all the time, trying to figure out a way, right? And this would be tough for some parents to digest. Is that in my junior days, it took me 8 years to really hone my skills, get physically strong enough, mentally strong enough, and then I could become, a much better player, become, what I wanted to become, which was a great player at 16, 17, 18, and then hopefully have a professional career.
Right. And the same thing happened with my son. I mean, when he
Right.
got into the 16s, he finally was beating the kids that he had lost to in the 10s, 12s, and 14s. And it was that same thing. It was developing the patience, developing the strength, developing the focus to be able to, as you said, stick to a game plan throughout a match from beginning to end, and, really execute the things that he worked on in training.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be in place and have to come together for kids to really have consistent, great results. Mentally, physically, technically, tactically, so many things.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be patient, but you also have to see and make sure that your child, their progression is going up, right? If it's going down or it's plateaued, then that's tough, right? It's that, something maybe is not going well. Be
I
coaching, it
think
could.
it's time for a break. I mean, listen, there are times where it's okay for the kid to take a couple months away from the sport and do something else.
Right. Yeah, it just depends on, each individual. Each
Yeah.
each individual is different. You have to know, who you're training, how to train them, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. There's a
Yeah.
lot you have to assess, and to get the most out of each and every.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're coming to the end of our hour because it always goes so fast when I chat with you. But if people want to get a hold of you, if they want to bring their kids down to you or ask you, for an assessment or whatever, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So they can reach me. I've had quite a few of your followers reach out to
Good.
me, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh, so they can reach me at Todd at twtennis.com. They can also reach me on social media. They can follow me on Facebook, or people have been writing me on Instagram as well. So that's Todd Widom _tennis for Instagram, or they can find me my business page or my regular page on Facebook under Todd Widom. But yeah, I mean, it's been tremendous, and I've had quite a few people from your show that have come down here to check us out. So
That's fantastic. Well, Todd, thanks for doing this again, and I'm glad you have a little respite this week. And good luck with school and with your son's golf. And what's the baby up to these days?
he's
Growing up, I'm sure.
all around already.
Wow,
So it'll
crazy.
be very interesting to see what happens. It's gonna be hard to caddy for two kids, so we'll see what happens.
Well, hang in there. And it was great talking to you. And to those of you watching, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And as always, if you have questions, please stick them in the comments and we'll get back to you. I'll pass along any questions for Todd to him, or you can reach him directly, todd@twtennis.com. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon on Parenting Aces.